शुक्लां ब्रह्म विचारसार परमा आद्यां जगद्व्यापिनी वीणा पुस्तकधारिणीम् अभयदा जाड्यान्धकारापहा हस्ते स्फाटिकमालिकां विदधती पद्मासने संस्थिता वन्दे तां परमेश्वरीं भगवती बुद्धिप्रदां शारदा
Today, our speaker is from pharmaceutical industry. Our speaker, Dr. Chetan Rathi, is a clinical pharmacologist at GlaxoSmithKline in the United States of America. Previously, he obtained his doctoral degree in pharmaceutical sciences from the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, US, where he worked on discovery of novel drugs for potential treatment of tuberculosis. His collaborative research has been published in some of the prominent medical journals, including Nature Medicine and Science Translational Medicine. During his PhD, he also authored book chapters on pharmacokinetics of protein therapeutics. Dr. Rathi has received numerous prestigious awards, both at the national and the international level. He is a proud recipient of the French government scholarship for summer internship in France, part of the winning team of Merck Innovation Cup 2016, and a gold medalist in his master's degree program at NIPER, Raebareli. Outside research, Dr. Rathi can be found hiking in the nature and playing outdoor sports. Over to you, Dr. Rathi.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Neha, for your generous introduction, and MVPM for inviting me. Can you guys hear me well and see me as well?
Yes, we can.
All right, so I guess I'll start sharing my screen again.
Sure, please do that.
Can you see my slides?
Yes, we can. Yes.
All right then. So first, I would like to give this disclosure and disclaimer that I'm an employee of GlaxoSmithKline and I hold stocks. This presentation reflects my views and should not be construed to represent those of my current or previous employer. Please do not make any payments to any individual or entities in connection with this presentation. So with that out of the way, I'd like to give you a brief outline that in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to discuss briefly about different avenues in pharmaceutical science, provide an outline about my educational and professional career so far. What are the different educational pathways available for students, things to consider while selecting a pharmacy program, how to identify the research area that you're passionate about, and finally, some of the alternate career options related to this area. So here, as you're all aware, in this pandemic, India is actually poised to play a pivotal role in the global efforts to develop vaccines. Even before this pandemic, actually, Indian pharma industry was known as the pharmacy of the world for delivering cost-effective and high-quality generic drugs as well as vaccines all over the world. This clearly highlights the need for professionals who have expertise in this area, who could drive those key initiatives impacting the lives of people across the world. And please feel free to ask any questions in between as well, or maybe towards the end of the presentation. Now, here is a screenshot from NIPER's website, which lists some of the conventional avenues of research in pharmaceutical sciences. So, for example, medicinal chemistry involves design and synthesis of new chemical entities. Natural products deals with the discovery of biologically active compounds from naturally available plants, microbes, or marine organisms. For example, we have all heard about penicillin, antibiotics, which was actually discovered from the fungus. One of the activities in pharmaceutical analysis involves development of analytical methods for quantifying drug substance. For example, you want to measure the quantity of drug in a tablet or capsule. You would have also noticed that drugs could be administered in a variety of formulations, including syrups, tablets, injections, eye drops, ointments. So this science of designing different types of delivery systems and formulations is often referred to as pharmaceutics. Pharmacology and toxicology is another interesting branch of pharmacy, which deals with the study of underlying the mechanism of action of drugs. For example, understanding how does insulin helps in regulating blood glucose levels. Pharmacy practice includes clinical, hospital, and community pharmacy. I'll come back to this a little later in the presentation. Pharmacoinformatics is the application of computational approaches to aid new drug discovery and development. And finally, pharmaceutical technology deals with the development of processes which are involved in the scale-up and manufacturing of bulk drugs and formulations. More details could be actually found on the website link of the institute, which I've provided. Now, here is a brief outline of my education and professional journey so far. I completed my schooling at Birla High School in Kolkata with a subject combination of physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology. After qualifying the All India Engineering Entrance Exam, I enrolled myself into the B.Pharm program of Birla Institute of Technology. So, during these 4 years in my B.Pharm, I did a number of internships in pharmaceutical companies as well as healthcare companies. Towards the end of my B.Pharm, I had a couple of options to choose from. So I had a job offer from a pharmaceutical company, Dr. Reddy's Lab. I also, interestingly, had an offer from a software company, TCS, and I also qualified the GATE and NIPER entrance exam for enrollment into the MPharm program. So I decided at that point that I would actually like to pursue a job at Dr. Reddy's lab, where I started off in the pilot scale up. Soon I realized that I would actually like to do further studies and maybe pursue an MPharm degree. And fortunately, at that time, NIPER was inaugurated in the year 2008, and I got an opportunity to apply for the pharmaceutics program there. From year 2009 to 2010, actually, I also did my master's thesis work at Central Drug Research Institute in Lucknow, which gave me a good idea about which area of research I want to pursue further. After that, after completing my master's program, I had a job offer from Tata at Venus, which is actually a contract research organization in Bengaluru. During this time, I actually prepared for my GRE and TOEFL, and I got admitted at a PhD program at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center in the US. Interestingly, just before I started my PhD program, I also got the opportunity to do an internship at University of Poitiers in France, which was also a very good experience in terms of the exposure that I got. So all these activities gave me a good idea as to which area of research I wanted to pursue further. And then during my PhD as well, I actually went and did an internship at a pharmaceutical company, and also participated in competitions like Merck Innovation Cup. This gave me a lot of international exposure, and I also got a chance to interact with students all over the world. After I completed my PhD, I started my job as a scientist, as a clinical pharmacologist at GlaxoSmithKline here in Philadelphia, close to Philadelphia. And as a clinical pharmacologist, my role is essentially to identify the right dose that can provide optimum benefit risk balance for the patients. One thing that I would like to mention here is that, you can typically get a stipend for the MS degree programs. Also, even in PhD, typically these PhD programs are fully funded. In the US as well as even in India, we get stipends for doing the PhD. All right, so now I would like to give you an idea about some of the other education pathways that you could pursue. So in the previous slide, I showed you the typical path that I followed, which was, after school, I did a B.Pharm and then an M.Pharm, a master's degree, and then I pursued a PhD. So now what I've seen is, of course, there's some changes in the exams. Since instead of AIEEE, now there's the NEET exam that one could appear for enrollment into the B.Pharm program. However, what I realize is that there's also a possibility that one could apply for a PhD program right after the Bachelor's of Pharmacy. So for that, you may have to appear for GRE and TOEFL in your B.Pharm program, and you also would like to know definitively which area of research you would like to pursue. This could actually help you save maybe a couple of years, because once you enroll into the PhD program, you eventually have to take 2 years of coursework. The other standard approach right now is, you could take the GPAT exam or the NIPER exam and then enroll into the M.Pharm program. And then you can apply for the GRE and TOEFL and then go for a PhD. And if you would like to do a PhD in India, then you will have to appear in the NET exam, or some universities actually, they have their own entrance exams, or they actually take the GPAT scores. So depending upon the universities, they have different requirements for enrollment into the PhD programs. A lot of times after completion of PhD, you will also have to do a postdoc for a couple of years to gain some additional expertise. And after that postdoc, you actually could start your career maybe in academic research or in a pharmaceutical industry, or you could go into the regulatory drug authorities. So this gives you the time span of the education, or the time that someone will have to spend to actually go through this PhD program and then a postdoc for eventually landing up in a job. The other alternative pathway that I recently came to know about was that someone could actually enroll into the PharmD program that few universities offer in India, which is a 6-year program. This is more clinically focused, where you actually develop your skills to become a hospital pharmacist, where you work along with the medical team to provide the dosing recommendation. So after this PharmD degree program, you could directly go into a job, into clinical research, or become a hospital pharmacist, or you could actually pursue a postdoctoral fellowship right after PharmD for a couple of years, and then apply for some of the career options that I mentioned before. So now the next question is, how do you actually choose a pharmacy program? So the first thing that you could check is the national ranking that is provided by the National Institutional Ranking Framework. In addition, you may also want to consider, whether the university that you're applying for actually has some collaboration for conducting research. Secondly, you could also see if those universities are actually offering optional subjects or courses in a curriculum. Thirdly, if you're applying for a PhD program, how's the reputation of your PhD advisor? How does the alumni network of the university or that pharmacy program look like? What are some of the job prospects after completing your coursework? So these are, I think, some of these additional factors that one should consider while selecting a college or a university. Another issue, I think, which is very important is, how do you identify the area of research that you would like to pursue further? So I think most important is, when you do your practical experiments and coursework, this may give you an idea of which area of research you would like to pursue further. You could actually rotate in different labs and work alongside maybe senior MPharm students or PhD students in your free time, and that can also give you an idea whether that is something of interest to you or not. In addition to the industrial internships in pharmaceutical companies, you could actually work in labs during your summers in some of the academic institutions in the labs. I think that can also give you a flavor of how does it feel to do experiments and do research. And maybe that can help you in identifying which area you're passionate about. I completely understand that there are a lot of courses that someone has to take in their bachelor's program as well as in master's program. However, if you find something interesting and you want to know a little bit more about it, you could always go and take some online courses and explore to see Is that something that you would like to do research during your MPharm or in your PhD? Here is actually a list of the career options that you could also consider. The first one is actually health economics and outcomes research. This is something that I was not aware of before when I was in India, but after coming to the US, I realized this is actually a function within a pharmaceutical companies that actually generates evidence of the value of new drug. So for example, if a new drug is invented, companies will have to show what is the value of this new drug over the existing drugs. Why should an insurance company or a provider pay money for this new drug? So this is the function which actually helps generate evidence for that. Then you have the intellectual property, which is a very valuable resource for a pharmaceutical company, and its protection is key to companies' future success. So you could be someone who is implementing strategies to protect and manage the intellectual property. Recently we have all seen the approval of vaccines by the various regulatory authorities, whether it is the Food and Drug Administration in the US or the MHRA in the UK, or in India, we have the Central Drugs Standard Control Organization. So here we have a couple of different options. You could either be scientists working in these regulatory authorities, reviewing all the clinical trial data and all the evidence to make a judgment for approval of a new drug or a vaccine. Or you could be someone working in the regulatory affairs of a pharmaceutical company, where you need to know about the global compliance requirements for the development of approval and utilization of drugs across different countries and geographies. Interestingly, the present Drug Controller General of India, Dr. Somani, has an educational background in pharmaceutical sciences. Another interesting area and evolving area is the medical writing field, which involves writing scientific documents of different types, which includes, regulatory or research-related documents like journals, manuscripts, posters, contents for healthcare websites or health-related magazines or news. Pharma consulting is an interesting field as well, which help with the development of global pharma strategies. A lot of these pharma consulting companies actually look for students who have PhD knowledge in their domain areas. Cosmetics is actually, or the consumer healthcare is actually another area where a student with expertise in pharmaceutical sciences could apply. Cosmetics like ointments, lotions, shampoos, toothpaste, herbal products. So, these are a huge variety of things that you could apply for. So this is by no means an exhaustive list, but I hope you can appreciate the diversity in the types of research and career options that you could choose from after studying pharmaceutical sciences. So if you have any questions or comments after this presentation, feel free to reach out to me at LinkedIn. And now I will pause here to see if there are some comments or questions.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Rathi, for that insightful presentation. I'm sure the students who have logged in today or their families would have really benefited from this presentation. Yes, Saurabh, would you like to play the video, please? And then we will take the questions and answers. I'll request the participants, if you have any questions, please list them down in the chat box. We will take it after the video. Thank you, Saurabh, for that. So now I will open the floor for question and answers. So we have the first question from Ms. Archana Lahoti. She wants to know, she says, she's currently studying in fourth PharmD, I believe fourth year PharmD. Can she work as a clinical pharmacologist directly after PharmD, or doing a PhD is mandatory? Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So after doing a PharmD program, depending upon what training you have, you may work as a clinical pharmacologist. However, generally what I have seen is you will typically have to do like a postdoctoral fellowship or an additional training specializing in that area before you start working as a clinical pharmacologist.
Okay, so that's it.
So I know one of my friends,
yes,
she actually did a PharmD from India, and then she came to the United States for doing postdoctoral fellowship, specializing in pharmacometrics and clinical pharmacology. And I think that helps and increases your chance in getting a role as a clinical pharmacologist.
Okay, so I would suggest Archana Lahoti to get in contact with you and maybe over LinkedIn, and then you can share your friend's number. Yeah, I think that will be, friends' contacts. That would be great, I think. Yes, I have another question. Can a PharmD student, so that means a person who, like a student who has completed his PharmD, work in AI related to healthcare?
Right.
I believe is artificial intelligence. Yes.
Right. So I think, again, these are, very upcoming fields, and it depends upon what kind of training you have, because in PharmD, what I typically know is it's a clinically focused program where you get skill set for becoming a hospital pharmacist. You work with the medical team to make dosing recommendations for the patients. So you may not have the adequate coursework or the training in AI to actually end up in a position where you could apply those techniques in healthcare. So it may be useful to take some courses online, or maybe enroll in a program which gives you those skill sets in AI related techniques that it could further apply into the healthcare.
Okay, what kind of courses? Like, I'm just wondering if that can.
So I think that is something that will depend upon, the job description. What are those AI techniques that you're looking for? So maybe something related to data programming, some of those data programming languages. So this is something that a student will have to explore. It's not my area of specialization, but that's what I think.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that one. There's another question. So you mentioned in one of your slides that, you need to do some online courses, and so where does the student search for these online courses? Are there any particular platform where the student can go to, and, if you can, guide on that, like any particular platform you're suggesting, where you can look for these courses?
Yes. So, there are a lot of platforms nowadays. For example, the Coursera is there, EDX, and then a lot of these universities like MIT, Harvard, and some of the other international universities actually have open courseware, and anyone can go enroll themselves, and they have full access to their course material as well as their videos for accessing the course content. So I think these are some of the different domains that a student could look at for getting more or in-depth understanding of other courseworks which are not covered in your core curriculum.
Okay, got it. Just wondering, there's another question which is related to what happens, after a student does, master's in pharmaceutical sciences and MPharm degree, does he or she get land up with a good job? Like, what do you think, whether it's India or abroad, if you can share prospects, if you have any ideas about that? Yeah.
So in terms of jobs, I did mention about the different research avenues, some of the conventional research areas that you could look at, as well as some of the alternate career options. One thing which I think I didn't mention was, a lot of times there may be a case where you don't want to pursue master's degree or you don't want to pursue PhD in research. What if I have a B.Pharm degree or a master's degree, and what are the options at that point? So, you could become a pharmacist in government hospitals. You could also open a pharmacy chain. So if someone has an inclination in business as well, they can have their own pharmacy chain. So with their degree in pharmaceutical sciences, they can provide some patient counseling to someone who's coming to their pharmacy. Or, you could maybe go into regulatory bodies. So I think these are some of the different options that you could look at.
But you can still
just after.
Yes, continue. Yes, continue, Dr. Rathi. Yeah.
So these are some of the options that one could look at even after your B.Pharm program. Actually, some of my friends are drug inspector in their states. So just having a bachelor's degree could also help you in actually getting different types of job opportunities.
Okay, so you are saying even if I have a bachelor's in pharmacy, I can still sit for the drug inspector, the DI inspector post-examinations, through that government protocol, right?
That's what my understanding was, but I would still suggest if, when someone is applying for it, to look into the details. Maybe things have got a little updated.
Fair enough.
But I'm pretty sure with a bachelor's and a master's degree, you should be eligible to apply for a drug inspector's position or a hospital pharmacist.
Oh, okay, great.
Or actually opening your own pharmacy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Of course, entrepreneurship is very critical. And, our community is known for, creating entrepreneurs. That's the, I would say, speciality of the Maheshwari community. Anyway, thanks for that. This question from Vaishnavi Kalantri. She's a biotech student preparing for master's in research field, but she says there's no scope in India. Is that true?
So I think, for a research area, I would say there's still a lot of work which is being done, and it's an upcoming area. So of course there are opportunities, but it may be limited. But in these COVID times, you can still apply for position across the world, and you could actually apply for a master's degree program in a different country. So for example, you could do a master's degree program in Germany, or you could do that in the US, and then see if there are some research opportunities in those countries. So I think you don't have to necessarily restrict yourself to a particular place or a country. And of course, in India, I think there are upcoming opportunities. It's that we'll have to be a little mindful and keep our options little open and maybe flexible. Because once you have an undergraduate and a postgraduate degree, you may not initially get the job that you are really interested in, but sometimes you get it in something slightly different. You could start your career there, and eventually, once you enter a company, you could see, is there something else that I could explore? So, we should always have an open mind, and then see what are the opportunities that are available and try to maximize them.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to ask you one more thing, Dr. Rathi here. What are the, maybe, if you can name some of the top institutes in India, because, she's a biotech student, I can understand the anxiety she must be going through, planning for research. And, of course, that there is a scenario that, the research is of not good quality done in India, whatever it is. What are the top institutions, she can look forward to in terms of biotechnology or maybe pharmacy in India? If you can suggest some right now, for her master's in research, if you can name some. Yeah.
Right. So I think the best way, I also had a slide and mentioned it during my discussion, the steps that one should take while making a selection for a university or college. So the first thing is to look at the ranking, at the National Institution ranking framework. I think that gives you a very good idea in terms of which university to pick. After that, I listed out some of the other additional steps. For example, does your university have collaboration with some pharmaceutical industry or for some research universities where actually you could do experiments or research in a lab? Whether they have, flexibility in terms of the courses that you could take. For example, there was this question that, you are a PharmD student. Can I take some courses related to artificial intelligence? Does that university offer that flexibility? Then, you could see, who is going to be your mentor, or which lab are you going to do research? Do they have those facilities? So a good way to look at that is you can look up the research publications that they have published. So that can give you an idea, what kind of research are they doing? What are the methods that they are actually applying in their research? So I think those are some of the background work that student needs to do when they make a choice or select the university or the subject that they want to pursue further.
Okay, and just wondering, what are the top journals where generally pharmaceutical scientists publish their research? Because if Vaishnavis has to have a look at the journals, which journals, because that also I would say adds credential to a supervisor or a mentor. So if you can name some top journals, if she knows that okay, somebody's getting frequently publishing there, then that could also be a good lead for her, I think. If you can suggest top journals.
Right. I think, again, coming to the journals, this is very specific to that particular area of research.
Okay, got it.
For example, if you are into pharmaceutics or drug delivery, then you look at journals which are specific to pharmaceutics. Of course, you could look at their, their rankings, and also, I think that is one of the ways. And the other way could be maybe just to look at their patents as well, if they have any patents, or, for example, is there some of their technologies which has actually been taken up by an industrial firm, actually has, and then there's a startup company for that. Okay. So there could be technologies which are not only necessarily limited to the publication domains, but is there something that has actually been discovered and patented and actually then implemented in real life? So those are some of the things that a student can do some search when they make a selection.
Right. There's another question. I think Ms. Archana Lahoti has another question. So she would like you to speak a little about clinical pharmacist or clinical research as well. What is the scope in US or Australia? And how can we get into these fields in these countries? Yes.
Right. So that's a good question. So after doing a PharmD program, which I mentioned is clinically focused, I think it is possible that you can apply for a pharmacist in other countries like Canada, but then you may have to sit for certain exams that they have in place. And once you qualify the exams and you have certain numbers of hours in a pharmacy, you can become a pharmacist in those countries. However, you need to qualify those exams to get the license to become a pharmacist.
Okay.
And I think, I'm not sure about Australia, but of course, they may have a similar procedure. I would request her to see, what are those examinations, and what are the eligibility criteria for becoming a pharmacist or pursuing a clinical research in those countries, because it could be country specific as well.
Yes, I agree. I just wanted to know, again, helping out the students here with, like, if you can tell me, some top global institutions, who are, working in pharmaceutical sciences or maybe other fields, like, related, like, some maybe specializing in medicinal chemistry or pharma regulatory affairs. If they can mention some of the name of the universities, whether it's in Australia, whether it's in USA, if you have some knowledge about the Europe, if you can mention some names, then, students can go ahead and, have a look at their website pages. I think that will be great, a good thing, a good starting point.
Right. So I think in the US, there are a number of universities and that someone could apply for, again, depending upon their specialization in pharmaceutical sciences. There is a ranking that is published for the pharmacy school, so the students can look at that. I think in Europe, there is the Uppsala University in Sweden, there's the Leiden University in Netherlands, and then there are quite a few good universities in Germany that someone could apply for specializing or doing research, a PhD in pharmaceutical sciences. And then again, it all depends upon which area of research you want to apply in. And my suggestion would be to look at that area of research, search for the publications, look at their job alumnus, their PhD advisor's reputation, what kind of job prospects that the person has or has their alumni has gone through. So looking at those things will probably give you an idea as to which university to pick. That's why I don't want to give a particular name, because sometimes we just look at a ranking or we think that, okay, this is an Ivy League and I should apply for a PhD program. But a lot of times what happens is, yes, that is of course a big university, but you are applying for a particular program. So you have to understand what is the potential and is that something of interest to you? Just because that department is a part of a Ivy League university, it may not be of interest to you. So I think that those are some of the factors that someone should keep in mind when selecting a university. It's just not the ranking, it's just not the, whether it's an Ivy League or not. So a lot of factors should be considered when you make that decision.
Right. Question. How does a student look for internship opportunities? And of course, you mentioned industry and the government sector, the research area, but what leads or how can he or she approach, because he or she must be in a bachelor's program. Is there anything you can do or something, or is it only the good grades? How do you approach? And how critical it is to do an internship every year, in your every vacation, if you can throw some light on that.
Right. So I think I would first make sure that the courses that I'm taking, the practicals and exams that I'm doing, I have full focus on that. And if you think that after doing all that, you still have some time and you want to pursue something additional, then you could go for internships during your summer. But we should also keep in mind that students should not overburden themselves with a lot of things, because the coursework itself and the practicals, it takes up a lot of time and effort. So yes, in summers, if you want to maybe explore something new or explore a different place as well, then you can apply for an internship, maybe in a pharmaceutical company, or you could actually see there's a research a university where you could do research during your summers. So maybe you could apply for an internship. Is there some scholarship which is available for internships abroad? So that is something that a student should keep an eye on when they think they have some free time and they would like to explore something more and different.
Yes, there's another question. I'm not sure if you have covered it, but just so somebody has done a B Pharm and then wants to top it up with an MBA. What happens after that?
Right. So that is also a good option. And you could go into pharmaceutical consulting, or you could actually go into business development, because as you may see that there are a lot of mergers and acquisitions that happens when the pharmaceutical companies would like to expand their pipeline, so they may look at other opportunities to consider. For example, there's a company which has new drugs in a particular therapeutic area. So it really helps if you have a background in business development when you make those deals.
Okay, I think with that, I will today end the question answer session. So participants, or, if you have any questions, I'm sure you can get in touch with Dr. Rathi over LinkedIn. Because I think he also go to and has his breakfast, and perhaps we all back in India would like to hit the dining table for the dinner. So I won't do any further delay. Any questions, straight to Dr. Rathi over LinkedIn. I'm sure he'll be happy to help and assist you with your concerns. Would you like to say, Dr. Rathi, anything, or can I just proceed with the vote of thanks?
No, I think I would like to thank MVPM for this great initiative and for giving me this opportunity to raise awareness about pharmaceutical sciences among students. And I would also like thank you for the wonderful questions and moderating this session. And thanks my friends who actually provided me input with some of the ideas and constructive feedback while preparing this presentation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rathi, of course, for this amazing presentation. And as I told you, I'm sure you have enlightened many young minds. And, that's MVPM is known for, just to help, building, young, bright, talents. And so that's really nice. Of course, I would like to, share, or I would say convey my sincere gratitude to Mr. Anil Lahoti, the president of MVPM, Malu Uncle. So he's the chairperson of MVPM Scholars Committee. Mahendra Jaju sir, I think he's not here today, so he's the secretary of the MVPM Scholars Committee. My ECS peers, Saurabh is here today with all the technical help. Saloni is here, and we have other members who couldn't join in today, because of time constraints. It's Darshit, Palash, Akansha, Pratik, I think, has joined in. Yeah, it's Pratik. So, without them, this would not have possible. And of course, I would like to thank our media partners, Mr. Gaurav Gattani and Mr. Martin D'Souza for, with the posters and everything, and, dissemination of our messages and emails. Thank you for that. And of course, to all our participants today, thank you for joining us on a Sunday evening. I know it's not an easy one. We all have our social commitments, but thanks for joining us. I'm sure you would have benefited from it. And yes, we will see you next week. So next week, Pratik Manadhania is our moderator. That's next Sunday. He will be, doing something on Atmanirbhar Bharat. So I'm sure you should all be looking forward to that webinar. It's going to be next Sunday, 11 a.m. Yes, 11 a.m. India time. So we'll see you then. Until then, have a lovely week ahead. Good night to all of you. Thank you. Jai Shri Krishna. Bye-bye.